everyone, this is KhUnlimited. Welcome to episode 33 of Spill the Tearal. This is a JRPG podcast where I go over some JRPG news, releases, mechanics, what I've been playing, want to play, and more. And this week we're going to be talking about Freedom Wars getting a remaster. Lots of JRPG news, a shit ton this week. My thoughts on being 50 hours into Trails Through Daybreak, how I'm looking forward to Disney's Pixel RPG, and more. And before we get into it, as I always say, if you're listening on audio services, I would appreciate it if you can give it 5 stars or a like or whatever your app allows you to do. That is literally the only way for podcasts to get it into people's algorithms. So if you can do that, that'd be appreciated. If you're on YouTube, you can like it, comment, whatever you want as you listen. And I also have a Twitter at Spill the Tearal. I'm tweeting on it a bit more often now, talking about what I've been playing and stuff like that. So if you're interested, feel free to follow me there. And before we get into it, the cool thing that I want to show this week, I mentioned last week that I found an anime store. That's part of the anime store. They have like these gacha bags you can buy, and I bought a Ghibli one. And so I wanted to show another thing that I got, which is this keychain of the homie Totoro right here. And he's pretty much just, in his signature pose with his umbrella on top of him. And I have a funny story about this keychain. In the store, they have a thing where if you spend a certain amount of money, you get like a free thing. So I got that. I had to spin a wheel and all that shit. And pretty much they said you could just pick any keychain for free. And so they have like this entire wall of keychains, probably like more than 100 keychains for sure. And so they said pick any for free. And I was there for a while and I ended up picking a Totoro with an umbrella keychain because I'm like, yeah, this looks cool. Then I went home, I opened up my gacha bag, and I got the exact same fucking keychain in the gacha bag. So I'm like, what the hell, man? And so I just had 2 of them and gave one to my brother, but very slim chance of that happening. Like there's like more than 100 keychains. So the fact that I got the same one from the bag, which I guess is kind of on me. I did get a Ghibli gacha bag. There was a chance of that happening. I just didn't even think about that at all. But yeah, that was a cool thing that I want to show you. And before we get into it, we're going to do the random Ghibli card, which I'm not sure if I should keep doing. And today we got the Jack of Spades, as I'm showing you right now. It shows kind of the main character with the guy, and they're sitting with someone else looking at the no face, no name dude. I don't remember anyone's name, but And on that note, we're going to get into the first segment, which is JRPG news. Now, for this week's JRPG news, there's so much. Usually I have like 3 to 4 news stories, sometimes less. This time I have like 9 or 10 or some shit. And so I'm going to try not to go too deep into each of them, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, and as always, I source these mostly from Gematsu. Other than that, like if it's on my Twitter feed, I find it from there or YouTube. But yeah, let's just get started right away. First news story is Dragon Ball Sparking Zero got a GT trailer, which is pretty huge because a lot of people were wondering whether GT was going to be in it. I thought it was really fucking obvious that it was going to be in it, but a lot of people weren't sure, and so they finally released a GT trailer. And clearly the developers or the social media accounts knew that this was the thing people were waiting for because they made it a big announcement. But there's a GT trailer. They showed all the characters you expect: Kid Goku, Super Saiyan 4, Goku Vegeta, Gogeta, Omega Shenron, etc. The one main mission I noticed, there was no Super 17, I believe, which is kind of weird. I don't know if they're saving him for something, but that was one thing I noticed that wasn't there. But the trailer was fucking fantastic. It's nearly like 4 minutes long. And for some reason, the trailers are really interesting. Even though the trailers are literally just there to show off characters, they always have kind of like a story spin to it to kind of explain the plot of the arc that they're showing off. So far, I've been really liking the trailers. I really love that they've been doing it like every 2 weeks or whatever the cadence has been. And I think this is one of my favorite kind of trailer cycles a game has had, because I've literally been thinking about this game pretty much every week because of the way they've been marketing, and I think it's been really good. And as you know, if you've seen a trailer before of this game, at the end they always fill in the roster of the game, and so you kind of get to slowly see it getting filled up. And after the GT trailer, you could tell there weren't that many spots left, maybe like 10, and which means that the announcements are probably going to stop soon. And that kind of leads to the next news story, which is that Sparking Zero full roster video is going to be tomorrow. So the trailer is literally called Full Roster. It's we're going to complete the main roster of the game, and so that's going to be happening tomorrow on September 19th. And yeah, it's just very exciting to see that we're already there. The game is coming out soon. It's going to come out in a month. It is interesting to see that they are finishing it off September 19th. There's still a month to the release. I wonder if they're going to be teasing more stuff. Maybe they're going to tease game modes or maybe maps or something like that. Maybe they can tease the DLC. But at the same time, teasing DLC before the game comes out is kind of weird. And so yeah, we're going to have the full roster tomorrow, and then we'll see how it is. Still not a fan how they're treating different transformations as characters, because the roster isn't really that big if you like kind of, take the transformations and put them into one character. But at the end of the day, we're getting a Tenkaichi 4 pretty much, so I'm not gonna be mad about it. But yeah, so the full roster is going to be finalized tomorrow. And yeah, that's pretty much all in terms of Sparking Zero. From here, I'll move on to the next news story, which is Reinatus is getting a demo. It actually got a demo, and it's now available on PS4, PS5, Switch, and Steam. If you don't know, Renatus is a game I've already talked about on this podcast, but it's this cool looking JRPG where you kind of play as 2 characters. And pretty much what this demo is going to be doing is, from what I read, you're going to be playing the opening chapters of the game. And based on that, I assume you can transfer save data. From what I read, I couldn't find information about it. Maybe there is. I didn't look too deep into it. But because you're playing the opening chapters of the game, I assume that there will be some kind of transfer progress. And if you don't know what Renatus is, I did get a little logline here that I can read, which is, Renatus is an atmospheric urban fantasy set in a realistic recreation of Shibuya, Tokyo, where the ultimate clash between magic and order is about to unfold. Seeking freedom through strength, the wizard Marin heads to Shibuya, where he meets Sari, an officer of the MEA, an organization dedicated to keeping wizards under control. So yeah, I've already mentioned in the past that I really like the premise of this game. It seems very cool. When I first saw it, I did not think it was like a wizard type game because it looked very modern. But the fact that it is, the fact that they have so many factions is very interesting to me, because like I love the Trails games, and one of the main things I love about the Trails games is that there's so many fucking organizations and factions, and I'm going to be talking about this later in the podcast when I'm playing Trails Through Daybreak right now, and already they have so many interesting groups and factions that you kind of got to play around and see how they feel about each other, and it's very interesting. And so this game kind of taking the concept of factions and making it its main theme of the game is pretty interesting. So yeah, Renatus I'm pretty interested in playing. I'll see if I play the demo, because like I said, I am playing Daybreak right now. That's literally, my free time is going to that. I literally work, then after I'm done working, I just play Daybreak till I gotta sleep. And yeah, so we'll see if I do play the demo, but it is something I do want to try at some point. The next news story, and this is possibly the biggest news story depending on who you are, which is Freedom Wars is getting a remaster. Now, Freedom Wars, okay, so the funny thing is, I saw this on my Twitter, like Bandai Namco posted a trailer, and the trailer's weird. It starts with like a live action scene of a guy going to jail, and I was watching it, I'm like, there's probably some like third person shooter or something that I don't give a shit about, and the name, I felt like I heard the name before, but I didn't know about it, and then when the gameplay actually started, I was like, oh, this actually looks cool. It actually looks like the visual style is very much like Code Vein or Scarlet Nexus, like that type of anime style, but kind of more serious. And so I got interested in the game. And after kind of looking into the replies and shit, turns out this is a game that a lot of people have wanted a remaster for a long time, which is interesting because I've never heard about it. But before getting more into it, I'll read the logline, which is, for the crime of existing, your 1 million year sentence begins today. In a dystopian future, the world is ravaged by pollution and depleted of natural resources, and humanity lives in a sprawling prison complexes called panopticons. Anyone born into this hellscape are deemed sinners. Players seek their freedom by volunteering for extremely dangerous combat operations to compete with other panopticons for what remains of the planet's dwindling resources. Now, as always, this is the first time I read the logline. I like reading it live, so I can kind of give my fresh reactions on it. The million year sentence thing is very interesting. I don't know what this means, because do the people actually live a million years? And also, it's very interesting that the crime of existing, like you're known as a sinner just for being born. I want to see how the game handles that, because what does that mean? Obviously, you're not born as an adult. You're born as like a baby. Are you like straight up a slave when you're born? Are you like if you're born a sinner, why are people even having kids? Like I want to see like what the world state is and how the world actually works, because just the premise of the world is very fucking interesting to me. So just from reading this, I'm like, I want to play the game. I want to see how it is. So I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on it. And there's also a bit more information if you want to know kind of the meta of the game, which is publisher Bandai Namco and developer DIMS have announced Freedom Wars Remastered, a remastered version of SIE's 2014 released PS Vita action RPG, including previously released downloadable content. It will launch on PS5, 4, Switch, PC, via Steam on January 9th, 2025 in Japan, and January 10th worldwide. And I also thought that was interesting too, because it was a game from SIE, Sony Interactive Entertainment, and so this was a Sony game. And from the article, from what I could find, is pretty much Dimps got the license and then Bandai Namco published it, and so we'll see how it is. But so far, it seems very interesting. And just to end it off, there were a few bullet points that they put in the article, which I thought I would list here, which is that this game has deep character customization, graphic and performance upgrades, obviously. And interestingly, for me, because I knew nothing about the game, is they have co-op battles with up to 7 players in the co-op mode. So I didn't know there was a whole co-op thing. It's very interesting that they have a co-op mode. You don't really see that these days. Usually a game is just single player or co-op, so the fact that it has a co-op mode is very cool to me. So yeah, everything about this game seems cool. It just came out of nowhere. I just saw it on my Twitter and it seemed very interesting to me, so I'll see how Freedom Wars is, and I'm going to keep my eye on it. The next news story is Disney Pixel RPG has a release date and is launching on October 7th. And this is a RPG I've talked about before in the past. I'm going to be talking about more in detail later in this episode, but it seems to be doing pretty good. It has apparently 600,000 people pre-registered already. I am one of them. And if you don't know what this game is about, I have a logline here, but it's actually the first time I saw it too, which is the game worlds that the Disney characters call home have suddenly been invaded by strange programs, resulting in chaos. Previously isolated game worlds have become connected, causing unexpected encounters between characters and throwing them into confusion. Take on the role of a player of these games and join Disney characters as you embark on an epic quest across multiple game worlds to restore order. Now, automatically, this seems very interesting to me. I didn't know that this was the spin that they're gonna, go with the game, because I just thought it was gonna be like, Disney characters just fucking exist together. But like mostly Disney games are like that. I think Disney Dreamlight Valley is like every Disney character just like chills together. But in this game, every Disney character is from a game and their worlds got connected, and you are a player of a game in this game and you gotta help them out. That's what the story is, which is very cool. I'm going to go deeper into this later in this podcast episode where I talk about this specifically, but in the segment where I talk about JRPGs I'm looking forward to, because they actually mention which game certain characters are from. So it's very interesting that the spin they're taking on this, but it's very cool. And yeah, the news story pretty much was that it's launching October 7th, which is within 3 weeks. So I already have it pre-registered. I can't wait to play it. And when I do play it and get to know it, I will definitely be giving my thoughts on this podcast. And from here, the next news story is Persona 5, the Phantom X presentation for Japan set for September 25th. Now, when I read this, I had no idea what this was. I'm like, is this like a game or something? And it turns out there is a free-to-play RPG available in some Asian regions, and that's what Persona 5 The Phantom X is. And so pretty much they just announced that there's going to be an event on September 25th. And it's an event in Japan, so I'm assuming this announcement is going to be for Japan release, because from what I can tell, I can't remember all the regions, but I think the game is out like in China, I think Taiwan, and somewhere else. And so it's not in Japan yet, and so I'm assuming this announcement is for Japan. I don't know if it's going to come in the West in the future, but I thought I would mention this just because I literally had never heard of this game, and maybe you haven't either, and so this might be something you might want to look into in case it does come out in the future. Another news story is a colorful action RPG, Starlight Revolvers, announced for PC, and technically this is not a JRPG. It's being developed in New York, I believe, but I thought it looked very cool, so I wanted to mention it. And pretty much it is going to be going to early access on Steam in 2025, and it is an action-adventure game with 4-player co-op multiplayer and roguelike gameplay. And visually, it looks fucking stunning. It is like this very bright and colorful, like everything is like bright pink, bright blue, bright green. It has this very colorful anime style, and it looks 2D in ways, but it's isometric 3D game. And so that's what it is. It's an isometric 3D game. It looks 2D, but it has this anime style, and it's very fucking cool. And I honestly didn't expect it to be a multiplayer game. When I saw it, I'm like, there's probably a single player RPG, but because it's a 4-player like roguelike type game with this style, I'm kind of interested in it. So I'm gonna see, maybe I can play this like with my brother or something, because we usually play co-op games together. So I'm gonna show him this game at some point, see if he's interested. But so far it looks very cool. And before we end it, there is a logline which I'll read, which is Starlight Revolver is set between the lush cutting-edge city of Nishi Island, Metropolis, NIM, and Somi, the otherworldly dreamlike realms that fuel NIM's prosperity. Wielding mysterious devices called revolvers to hop between NIM and Somi, players become divers, brave voyagers who crash through the walls of reality in pursuit of untapped riches. And yeah, it just looks like a very cool game. And again, technically not JRPG, but I thought I'd bring it up in case you are also interested in it. We're getting to the end. We're almost done the news section. But another news story is Zenless Zone Zero version 1.2 update called Tour de Inferno launches September 25th. Now, I love Zenless Zone Zero. It was a game that I was playing like religiously for a while. Like I was playing it every fucking day. I was playing like for long hours. But for some reason, this happens to me with some games where if I play a game a lot for one day, like for a long time that one day, the next day I just stop playing it. This happened with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where like I don't play Assassin's Creed games anymore. They're just not my style. Like when they got rid of like the Desmond storyline. But with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I think I got it for free or very cheap. I started playing it. I loved it. And one day I played from like morning to night. Like I just really loved it. And then the next day I just didn't touch it and I never touched it again. I don't know why. And I don't plan to go back to it. It's just like, it's not like the story was interesting to me, because like usually Western games don't have that good of a story for me. Like they're not that interesting to me. And so Assassin's Creed is one of those. And because I was just playing for the gameplay and I kind of stopped, I'm not that interested anymore. And so the same thing happened with Zenless Zone Zero, where like I was playing it all day and I just stopped at some point. Unlike Odyssey, I am going to get back to this. The reason I stopped is because, like a lot of Hoyo games, Genshin Impact 2, they have a lot of walls that come up once you're caught up to the game. So it was getting to the point where like I would do like 30 minutes to an hour of story, and then they're like, oh, you gotta level up 4 times to continue, which gets really annoying pretty fast. Wuthering Waves is another game that kind of has this, but Wuthering Waves is a lot better with it, where like usually they don't make you level up as much, and if they do, it's easier to level up Wuthering Waves, so I never really felt the wall that hard. Whereas Endless Zone Zero, there were like 2 to 3 days where I just had to get the XP and just level up and stop playing. The next day do that again and stop playing until I was with the story again. And so at this point, I'm just kind of waiting for there to be more updates, and maybe this is the update that I'm going to jump into again, because it's very cool. And I'll just read the description of the update right now, which is: proxies will expand their journey in New Eridu to the desolate outskirts known as the Outer Ring, while hopping on a passionate motorcycle ride with Caesar, Bernice, and other members from the Sons of Kaladin. Meanwhile, the brand new arcade game Bizarre Brigade at Godfinger and various events, including Overlord's Feast, will offer players more entertaining ways to enjoy the game. With optimizations for the TV mode, squad preset, time, and stamina systems being implemented in this version update, Zenless Zone Zero is aiming to keep providing its players with a better gaming experience. So this kind of explained everything that's happening. So the actual content is a new story mode with a new area with this new group. And I know what this group is, the Sons of Kaladin. I don't know that's what they're called, but I have one of the characters that's in it, this kind of girl with the bat. And what's very cool about this is clearly they're being introduced to the story now in this update. But ZZZ, what it does is that's cool is you'll see these characters in the world before it's even their time in the story. So the people that are in this story update, I've seen them in the town. I've seen them walking around. You're able to talk to them and they'll say stuff that you won't understand right now. Like, so they'll say like, oh, X is like here, we should go hang out with them or do this or whatever. And they will clearly be living in the world doing their own thing. And when I saw them, I'm like, clearly they're going to be in the story in the future. I just didn't know when. And it's funny to see that it wasn't even out yet and it's coming out now. So things like that really make the world seem like it's living, and so that's very cool to see. And, you know, other stuff that was mentioned is they're going to have a new arcade game. ZZZ has an arcade where you get to play some games. I believe some of them are multiplayer. I haven't tried them yet. I've only played like the Snake arcade game, and there's this other Tetris-like game. And so it looks like they're adding another arcade game, which is very cool. And they said they're just doing some more fixes and optimizations, which is cool to see too. But yeah, ZZZ version 1.2, Tour de Infernos, coming September 25th. And finally, the last news story, which is Rainbow Sea for Switch and PC launches on September 20th. Now, I'll just read this real quick, which is: Rainbow Sea is a multi-ending adventure with pixel art style based on the myth of the traditional Japanese gods, 7 lucky gods. You explore inside a treasure ship and make choices to change the storyline. All 22 endings are true endings, and only you can know the authentic story. That's a lot of endings. Okay, so I actually read this one before the episode, because I just happened to by accident. And when I read the 22 endings, I was like, what the fuck, 22? And then more than that, they said all 22 endings are true endings. I'm not sure what that means, because I just don't know what that means. Like, how can all of them be true endings? And pretty much it makes it sound like that they're just saying like, yeah, whatever story you get is the canon one. But at the same time, if they're wording it like that, they're making it seem like they don't want you to get the other endings. Like, it seems like they were saying like, whatever ending you get is the ending. Like, that's how it ends, you know, canonically, which is okay. I don't know what that means really. And there's a bit more of a description which I'll read right here, which is: Rainbow Sea is a multi-ending pixel art visual novel based on the Japanese myth of the 7 lucky gods. It depicts a year in the life of a human who was chosen as a candidate to become a god, living among the 7 lucky gods, who do not seem to open up much to her. You, as a human, can explore the treasure ship and make choices to change the storyline. All 22 endings are true endings, and only you, the player, will be able to find the real story hidden behind all of them. So that gave a bit more information about who the character is and what the actual stuff you're going to be doing is. I noticed that they say, as a human, you can explore the treasure ship and make choices to change the storyline. Is the only location a treasure ship? That'd be interesting, because there's certain movies that do this where it's kind of like a one location and they just have the entire game there. So I wonder, is this a one location game? I'm not sure. But it being a ship is cool. Visually, it looks cool too. It's pretty much a pixel style isometric JRPG. It's all 2D, but the actual like art of the characters is like anime style, so it looks pretty cool. And honestly, the premise just sounds dope, that you're a candidate to become a god. The gods don't really like you, or they don't open up to you, and so I'm honestly interested in this game. We'll see if I play it. It looks more like an indie type game, so we'll see how it is when it comes out. But yeah, Rainbow Sea for Switch and PC launches September 20th. And that is all the JRPG news. And from here, we'll move on to the next segment, which is JRPGs that are releasing this week. So in terms of the JRPGs that are releasing this week, as always, I source them from RPGsite.net and IcicleDisaster.com. And this week, we're going to be talking about the games that are released from September 15th to the 21st. And we have 3 releases, which is nice, a good number. First of all, a game near and dear to my heart is Final Fantasy 16 is now out on PC. It came out on September 17th, which was yesterday. And if you don't know what this game is, it is a 3D action RPG. It's personally my favorite real-time combat I've seen in a game. I've been a fan of like Kingdom Hearts 2 combat. That's been my favorite. But in terms of like a modern game, I think Final Fantasy 16 is like the best. Like, I love it. Like, it's really fucking good. It makes you feel powerful. It's very fluid. You never run out of things to do, and you can just kind of like murk anyone you see once you get powerful enough and get enough power. So it's really good combat wise. And in terms of the plot, or the logline, which is an epic dark fantasy where fates are decided by mighty icons and the dominants who wield them. This is the tale of Clive Rossfield, a tragic warrior who swears revenge on the dark icon Ifrit, a mysterious entity that leaves naught but calamity in its wake. Yes, it's a very fucking cool one. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend you pick it up. Now, the game is like always on sale, surprisingly. Like, even like, I think it's like in Canada, I believe it's an $80 game, but I see it for like $50 pretty much all the time. And in America, that's probably like 4 cents because our currency's doing shit. But like, it's always cheap on PlayStation. I'm sure it'll be on sale all the time on PC. And so pick it up if you haven't. Trust me, it's a fucking fantastic game. The second release is Touhou Genso Wanderer Foresight, which is coming out on the PlayStation 4 and Switch on September 18th, which is today. Now, this is a top-down 2D game. I believe I covered a game like this in the... Jesus, it's so sunny right now. I'm sorry if like the camera looks weird right now. Like the sun's just coming out. But I believe I covered a game like this in the past because I found it weird where when you read the description on Steam, it says it's a fan game, which is weird. I don't know how that works. Like, did they get the license or something? But pretty much it says it's a fan game and it's based on the main Touhou project game / series. And so I just thought I'd bring it up because, you know, it was on the website with the releases. So that is coming out today. It's called Touhou Genso Wanderer Foresight on the PS4 and Switch. And the last release is Inotria, The Last Song, coming out on PS5 and PC on September 19th. Which is tomorrow. And this technically isn't a JRPG. I just thought I'd add it because there weren't that many releases anyways, and it looked cool. And it is, I believe, an Italian developer. And I have the logline, which I'll read real quick, which is Inotria, The Last Song is a Souls-like set in a beautiful sunlit world inspired by Italian folklore where the brightest sun casts a darkest shadow. Wear unique role-altering masks. Face formidable foes and alter reality with the power of Ardor to unravel the secrets of Inotria. That's very cool. Wear unique role-altering masks. So I guess maybe that's like a class changing system where like when you change a mask you change classes, kind of like in Final Fantasy 14. If you change a weapon you change classes. That'd be pretty cool. And I looked at some gameplay like on the Steam page. It definitely looks Souls-like. It looks very beautiful visually, like fidelity wise, and I'm personally liking it more than like Souls games just based on it. Like, even from the description you can tell it's a more bright game. Like, it's very sunny, and so like I was watching some gameplay and it looked like very fucking bright and like nice, you know, as opposed to Dark Souls, which is very dark and grimy. And so this game looks interesting to me. Will I buy it? I'm not sure. From one of the Steam reviews, I saw that someone finished it in like 12 hours, so I'm not sure if that's a positive or negative for you. For me, that actually may be a positive because I've played some Souls games here and there, my favorite being Code Vein. I never finished it, but like I kind of want to finish a Souls game just so, or a Souls-like game just so like I can say that I did. And if this is 12 hours, that's like a week that I can maybe do, hopefully, if this is not that hard. But yeah, as long as it goes on sale right now, it's like $55 here. I'm not gonna pay $55 for a 12-hour game, but if it ever goes on sale hella cheap, maybe it's something I'll pick up and finish. But yeah, Inotria, The Last Song, very cool looking, coming out tomorrow, September 19th on the PlayStation 5 and PC. And from here, we will go on to our next segment, which is a JRPG that I'm looking forward to. Now, for the JRPG that I'm looking forward to this week, it is a game called Disney Pixel RPG. I've talked about this game many times. I've talked about it earlier in this episode, but Disney Pixel, fun fact, I didn't know that this game was called Disney Pixel RPG until today. I was just calling it that because like I thought that was like an in-progress name, but it is called Disney Pixel RPG, which is funny. And if you don't know what this is, it is a RPG with Disney characters, and it's going to be on mobile, and it's coming out on October 7th, and it is like a 2D, not isometric, it's like a top-down-ish fighting game. Like, I saw like some pictures of it. There hasn't been like a very great trailer that shows a lot about it, but it looks amazing visually. And I mentioned it earlier in this episode, but the actual logline of this game kind of says that pretty much the plot of this game is, within this game, there are Disney games, and something happened to make all of them combine, and the character you play as is a player of those games, and you're going to pretty much help them out. I'm not sure if you got that, but that's what it is. And honestly, it seems very interesting. Like, I just thought it was just going to be like, I didn't even know that if there was going to be like a serious plot. I thought it was just going to be like, oh, the Disney characters are fucking around and you just help them fight bad guys. But the fact that they have that plot is very interesting. And what's even more interesting is that they literally made fake games within the game. I don't know what that means in terms of gameplay. Like, are we going to be able to play those games? Because like I was on their website, I was kind of checking it out, and they actually say what genre each character is from. So for example, I have a few here, but they mentioned that Maleficent is from an RPG, Mickey is from a board game, and Judy, the rabbit from Zootopia, is from an action game. So they clearly have it thought out where like they're from games of a certain genre. I wonder if you actually get to play these. Like, do you get to play the RPG that Maleficent's from? Do you get to play the fucking board game that Mickey is from? It's very cool, and I wonder like what role that plays and like why they chose what they did. Like, why is Mickey a board game? Like, well, I'm not sure, but the premise to me just seems very interesting. Since you play as a character that helps him, it is like an original character, so you actually get to customize them how you want, which is very cool. In terms of the visual style, I mentioned this before too. It is pixel style, but the characters do look different. So for example, Mickey's pixel style looks different from Aladdin's pixel style. Like there's a different density of pixels compared to Zootopia. They're also pixel style, but they're like way more high resolution compared to like Mickey or Aladdin. So it seems to be that I guess it makes sense. When I was talking about this before, I said that every world probably looks different, like every Disney series. What is likely is that it's probably each game in this game is different. So because Mickey is a board game, he looks like this, and because Zootopia is from an action game, she looks like this. That's going to be kind of probably the impetus within the game of why everyone looks different, which is pretty cool. They actually have a reason for why everyone will look different because they're from different games. But yeah, I'm just really interested in it. It's coming out very soon, and just personally, I am kind of hankering to have another mobile game that I can play, which is simple. I usually play Wuthering Waves and ZZZ, but the problem is, I consider them. I know they're on mobile. I don't consider them mobile games. Like they're more like full-fledged games where like you really have to be in it. And sometimes I just want to play a simple ass game, and just something I do like every day is I like walking. Like I literally just walk behind me in my hallway like for like 30 minutes just to get some cardio, and so. Sometimes I want to play something during it. Right now I watch videos and I'm like, I want to play a simple game that's not too heavy, and I feel like Disney Pixel RPG may be the perfect thing for that, and so I can't wait till it comes out. It's coming out within 3 weeks, and when it does come out, I will definitely play it and talk about it. And just in general, another reason why I'm kind of, getting interested in this game is, for some reason, I'm interested in Disney type games. I'm not sure why. It's not like I watch Disney movies, really. I don't. My Disney love comes from Kingdom Hearts, and so because this game is very Kingdom Hearts coded, I guess you can say, I guess I'm interested because of that. And like because of that, whenever a Disney game comes out, I do at least want to try it. I played Disney, I believe it's called Dreamlight Valley, which is kind of like their Animal Crossing type game. I actually want to go back to it. It was pretty fun when I played it, but it was pretty cool. All the Disney characters are just living in a neighborhood, and like Animal Crossing, you have to clean up your house, you get a house, and you just get to play through the game, which is cool. Another great example is Disney Speedstorm, which is their car racing game. I mentioned this before, I believe. I think Disney Speedstorm is probably the best car racer right now. This is the first car racer I've played where I think it actually controls better than Mario Kart. Usually that is never the case. I've played a bunch of kart racers, but Disney Speedstorm specifically, I'm like, this controls better than Mario Kart. It looks better than Mario Kart. The maps are better than Mario Kart, and also the actual like gameplay aspect. Like Mario Kart, I can't play single player; it's just fucking boring. Like there's no reason for me to. But this game, the single player is challenging. It's fun. They have like this track system that you go through. They have like a battle pass type thing, so there's actually like incentive for you to play and unlock stuff. So I just think Disney Speedstorm was very good. And to get back to my point, because these games are Disney based, they're the reason I give them a chance. And so this Disney Pixel RPG is another reason why I want to give it a chance. And something that I actually realized today, which is very cool, is originally when I saw this Disney Pixel RPG, I thought it was like a Western game. That's just what I assumed because it's a Disney game, and I was just adding it to these episodes because I was interested in it. I learned that it's not. It is being developed by a Japanese developer. I believe they're called Gung Ho Online Entertainment, I think. And in terms of me, that just gives me a lot more faith in this game. This is just my personal taste, but I kind of don't really like most Western games that come out these days. This is not really my cup of tea. Where like personally, I think Japanese developers are carrying the games industry for the games I play. And like, if there was no such thing as Japanese developers, I don't think I'd play video games these days. But because this is a Japanese developer, I have more faith in it, and hopefully it'll be a fun game. And that's pretty much all I want to say about this game. It's just very interesting looking. And if you haven't heard of it, I implore you to Google Disney Pixel RPG. It looks very cool. And just from like seeing a screenshot of it, I can assure you, like, if you play RPGs, it is going to at least look interesting. And yeah, from here we'll move on to the next segment, which is a JRPG mechanic that I think is dope. Now, for the JRPG mechanic that I think is dope, I want to bring up something that I've noticed in Trails Through Daybreak as I've been playing it. And because I'm going to be talking about Trails Through Daybreak a lot in the segment, I'm going to pretty much smoothly transition from this segment to the what I've been playing segment when I get to that, because I've just been playing Daybreak. And so there's going to be kind of a blurred line of when I move to that, but Just so you know, that's what's going to happen. And so for the JRPG mechanic that I want to talk about in Trails Through Daybreak is their combat system, or specifically the way they do the combat system. And this is very interesting, where if you played any of the other Trails games in the past, every game has been a turn-based game. And I want to say it's like between a traditional turn-based game like Pokemon and a grid-based game, where technically you can move your characters around and your attacks have like AoE kind of ranges where they do the damage. But Trails has always had more freedom, where like you can move around more, like the area of effect damage is very loose, where like if you can kind of finagle the circle to encompass all the enemies, it will damage them and things like that. And so the Trails games have been my favorite in terms of combat systems, but I did see an article before saying that they do want to move more to a real-time system, which I was kind of worried about, because I'm like, I don't know if they should, and I don't know if this is the game they were talking about doing it with, because they did change the combat system in this, but they didn't do it fully, which I think is interesting. So basically what they did is they have a real-time combat system and a turn-based combat system in this. And the way it works is, usually in Trails, when you see an enemy and you touch it, or if you hit it, the turn-based combat starts. And in this, what they did is they have the real-time combat system, which is the field combat, and they have the turn-based combat system, which is the command combat. And what happens now is when you see an enemy on the field and you touch it, nothing happens. You just get to fight it on the field. So you can attack. You can attack a lot of times, get this kind of charge meter, then use a powerful attack, and you can literally just kill them on the field and you're good. And if you really want, you can press square. You'll do a thing that's called dropping shards in the game. And once you do that, that pretty much allows you to make a field for the turn-based system, and then it just goes back to how it used to be with some changes which I'll talk about. And so this is very interesting to me, because like I've seen attempts at trying to make real-time and turn-based together. One of the most famous is the ATB system, which I think is absolutely garbage. I hate the ATB system, but personally, but like that's, I feel like people have said like, yeah, that's kind of like real-time and turn-based, because you have the turn-based menus, you have the real-time aspect of it. I've never liked it, and so seeing this game take real-time elements and turn-based elements and put them together is very cool. And surprisingly, after playing this game, I hope every Trails game uses the system. I just like it more than the turn-based only system, because you pretty much remove the aspect of Trails where, like, you know, sometimes you'll go into a new area and say you're in this grasslands area, which is very big, and a lot of the times what would happen, at least the way I play, is every time I come into a new area and I see bad guys, I like to kill every single bad guy to get the XP, just so I don't have to grind again in the future. And that's literally worked for every single Trails game I've played. And so the thing is, that does get kind of like tiring, where like you have to touch every single enemy, fight a fuck ton of enemies, and like every turn-based game, or like most turn-based games, when you see one enemy on the field, that usually constitutes some more enemies in the battle, which is kind of annoying. Where this game, since it's real time, every enemy you see is all the enemies, so you can just go up to them and kill them, and fighting them in real time usually is faster. It is like objectively faster, because there will be times where like there are moments where the bad guys can actually force you to go into a turn-based combat. So there's these special moves they can do where they kind of glow red and hit you, and if they're able to hit you successfully, it says enemy advantage, and pretty much what happens is they start the battle on the upper hand and they can start attacking you, and it's a turn-based battle from there. And I know it's slower in turn-based, because like there'll be times where like I'm about to kill an enemy, like it'd probably take like, I don't know, 6 more hits to kill an enemy, but that constitutes to like 2000 HP, and 2000 HP takes a bit in turn-based to get down to 0. And so what could have been 6 hits, which could have took like 5 seconds, is now going to take like a minute of combat or something, for example. And so I'm really liking how speedier the game feels because of the real-time combat. But because of this real-time combat system, or this field battle system, what ends up happening is there are just so many more enemies on the field now, because like I said, in the previous Trails games, if there were 3 enemies on the field, what that usually meant was if you touch an enemy, you might be fighting 5 enemies per enemy on the field, if that makes sense. So if there's 3 enemies on the field, in the turn-based combat, there might have been 15 enemies total. And what's happening in this game is, instead of the 3 enemies on the field, you will see all 15 enemies on the field now, because they are literal, you know, you can like fight them in real time now, so they have to render all the enemies on the field. And so what that does is, whenever you go to a new area, you're just fucking blasted by the amount of enemies you see, especially if you have the ability where you can see them on the minimap. It just surprises me, where like usually an area would have maybe like, I don't know, 15 enemies in like the old Trails games, and this one would have like 70 or something, like an insane amount. And some of them are quite strong, like you gotta like really, you know, get down, get their health down slowly and like fight them. It'll take like several minutes to kill one, even in the real-time combat system. So it's very, very interesting how they implemented it. The one thing I would say, if I had to like adjust it, is I know why they did this, but they made the real-time combat system very simple, even though they did like build upon the previous games. The previous games you were only able to hit, and once you hit an enemy you went to turn-based. In this you can hit, you can dodge, and you can use your charge attack, which is a meter that fills up as you fight or get hit, and then you can charge enemies and stun them. And that's cool. It's a lot more than the previous games, obviously. And I 100% see why they kept it this simple, because they want the turn-based system to be the main form of combat, which it is. Every time you fight a boss or like there's a story battle, it is always going to force you in the turn-based system, which I like. But hopefully in the future, if they do keep building upon the system, it would be nice if within the field real-time combat you can use some arts. Like if I'm able to use some of my fire spells and water spells, even if it's like a simplified version. Like for example, if like my main character Van, he's mostly a wind spell guy. If they made it that in the real-time battle he just has like a generic wind spell that he can use, I'd be fine with that. That's cool. Like if they don't want to do the entire menu-based system, which I can see they don't want to, it'd be nice if I can just use a long-range wind-based system, because there are enemies that when you're fighting them on the field, like your kind of AI partner thing would say like, hey, this is an enemy that you need to use arts for, or you're not going to damage them that much. And right now, the only way to combat that is to change to a character that uses arts. And in my case, there's like literally only one character that does that. And so if she wasn't in my party, I'd be kind of fucked for this enemy. So it'd be kind of nice if you could just use arts with any character, because every character does use arts. That is a thing you can do in the turn-based system. So if every character has some kind of arts ability in the field combat, that would be nice. On top of that, if they want to make it more complex, you can even add your CP abilities. Like everyone has like physical abilities they have, which are like cool animations at play. Maybe they can add that in the future. But yeah, so far, again, I get it. This is the first game they added the system. I actually agree with their choice of making it very simple. I honestly wouldn't even be mad if they kept it simple, but at the least I would want an arts system on top of that, just so I can also do arts damage if I want, / long range damage, because if you're fighting an enemy with a sword user like Van, you just always have to be up their ass and be very close, whereas it'd be nice if I could just kind of, go long range sometimes when I need to, without needing to switch my character to an arts user. But yeah, that is something, or some kind of criticism that I did have with the system. But yeah, I just think overall this is very nice, especially because this is kind of like a joke with myself, I guess, whenever I play the Trails games. But like I said, I only fight the enemies on the field the first time I'm in an area. So if I'm in this forest area for the first time, I will kill every enemy and then move on to the story. But if I ever come back in that area just to like travel or for like another story purpose, I don't fight enemies. And what ends up happening is that I usually just have to dodge every single fucking enemy. So if I'm running across this forest, I have to make sure I swerve around every single enemy and make sure not to touch them, which kind of gets annoying. And the nice thing with this game is there's none of that now, because when you touch an enemy, nothing bad happens. Like it won't start the battle. You can just run past them and it's fine. So I never have to do the freaking thing where like I have to like swerve around enemies anymore. I just like run straight past them or through them or whatever, and there's zero risk of a battle starting, which I just think is very nice. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to say about the combat. Actually, you know what? In terms of the turn-based combat, let me talk about that. The turn-based combat, they did evolve it more. So I mentioned the way the turn-based combat works in Trails is it's turn-based. You have different shapes of area of effects of spells. Some are just like a straight line. Some are circles. Some are just single enemies. And the way like everything worked in terms of the combat in the previous game is you can either do an attack, like a magic spell or like a physical attack or whatever, or you can move. And I've always thought the movement system in Trails was just like useless. Like it seemed weird that, like, for example, sometimes an enemy would be doing a magic spell and you could see their circle that they're going to attack, and I would want to move outside of it and then attack them, but they would let you move and then you just can't attack anymore. So it'd be completely useless. So like you would pick the spot you want to move and your turn's over. And that always felt like a waste. And so what I would usually end up doing is I just didn't move and I would just tank the hit, because I would at least be able to hit them back. In this game, they made it miles better. And so basically what it is it's when it's your turn, it pretty much just becomes it's almost like you're fighting in real time now, where like you just get to move your character around with your analog stick. So you can run around wherever you want. There's no limit in terms of how long you run for. They do have a circle of how far you can run, and that changes per character. But I can literally just like take my character, run behind the enemy, and then use an attack on them, and it's cool. I can move and attack in the same turn, and it's just fantastic. That's something that like I've always wanted, I feel like, but I didn't know that I wanted, and I just think it works great. And because they do have this new movement system, what is nice is they actually have some attacks that take advantage of it. So for example, Van, he has one move that it's a move that's a sword attack and it kind of goes out in a cone shape. And if you hit an enemy from the side, it does more damage. And so what you'd always want to do is you'd want to move to the side of an enemy, and then they'll tell you that you're beside them, then you attack them, and then you just get more damage. And there's more moves that if you're behind an enemy, it does more damage. So not only did they add this movement system, that alone would be very cool to me, but the fact that they actually gave a reason to do it, where they actually have moves that take advantage of the movement system, I think that's fucking great. Another thing that makes a movement system even better is they pretty much have this thing where if you're in the range of another party member, everything about you is boosted. So you do more damage when you attack. Actually, I think that's it. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but pretty much what they say is like, if you're near another party member, these kind of glowing rings will come around you. And whenever you do an attack, you'll have an animation of them kind of like supporting you. And I'm assuming you do more damage. And that's just another benefit of the movement system where like, you kind of have to choose, do you want to stay with your other characters and not move, or do you think it'd be more beneficial for you to run away from the character and not get that boost, but you'll be able to get extra damage from doing a back attack? So you kind of have to make those choices. And pretty much what ends up happening for me is I pretty much just keep characters in pairs. So if I have some characters in front of the enemy, I'll just make sure there's 2 there and the other 2 are behind the enemy and things like that. When I first started playing, I was just keeping all the characters together because I'm like, might as well. They'll all be in their, range of the rings, and they'll be getting the boost from the other characters. But that usually ends up being a bad thing because an enemy can just use an attack and affect everyone. That can fuck you over really bad. And so I started using that less and splitting characters up. And then as the battle goes on, I'll slowly just get them in pairs so they can still get that boost, but also still have the tactical advantage of hitting the enemy from the behind or side if they need to, which is very cool. And so that small change of adding a movement system and building upon it by having the character boosting when they're in your range and having attacks that you can do more damage with from the side or back, I think is just like chef's kiss. Like, they implemented it perfectly and it works perfectly, and I love it. And I hope they don't go back to the old system, because I bet now if I go back to an older Trails game, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, right, you can't move. I forgot about that, because this game has just been feeling, it's just such a natural progression where like it doesn't even feel like they just threw away the old system. It really feels like they cared about the old system, but they really want to modernize it in a way that works, and it just really does. And so yeah, I just think that the way the command-based turn-based system melds with the field-based real-time system is perfect. And like I mentioned, we're going to be smoothly going into the next segment of what I've been playing, which is Trails Through Daybreak. So I'm just going to be continuing to talk about the game. So that was the combat section of the game. So let's talk about the other aspects of Trails Through Daybreak. And in terms of how far I'm in it, I'm 50 hours in. I think when I did my last episode, I was like barely into the game. I believe I was specifically like 3 or 4 hours into the game, because that day was like the first day I played the game, so I only played for 3 to 4 hours, and I've been playing every night since. And so I am like 49 to 50 hours into the game, so I can give you my thoughts. No spoilers if you want to know exactly where I'm in chapter 3. I'm kind of ending chapter 3. That's where I'm at right now. And yeah, so I already talked about combat. That was an entire thing. And in terms of the other aspects, let's talk about that. So one of the things that I want to talk about is the characters. I think the characters in this game are very good. Like all Trails games, the characters are amazing. They're like pretty much all likable. Like the party members that I have so far are very cool, and I'm just really liking the character aspects of it. And I love there's always mystery too. Like there's always some aspects of characters that you don't know. One character, this isn't a spoiler, she's literally the first character you see, is Agnes. The plot is kind of driven based on what she wants to do, and it's always kind of a mystery of like, why does she want to do this? Like, what's the reason behind it? And we really don't know. And like us as the main character know that she isn't telling us the truth, but like at the same time, like we don't care. We're like, it's fine, we're helping you. And so there's that character aspect, which is very cool. And in terms of like the main character, Van, I think he's just like, I fucking love him. I remember when the game was coming out and they were showing images of him, and I never watched any of the trailers because I didn't want to spoil myself, but the one thing that I was very interested in seeing was how they would handle his character, because with Trails in the Sky, Cold Steel, Zero/Azure, all the characters seem similar, with all like very positive, kind of smiley, happy characters. Rain probably a bit less so, but he's still like a very positive guy. But whenever I was seeing Van in the promotional materials, I was like, this dude looks like a lot older. He seems a lot serious. He seems like more deadpan. And I was wondering how that was gonna go. And I was clearly off the mark. That's not how he is at all. He is a nice guy. He is more in the like morally questionable side of things. That's kind of the entire plot, where like he doesn't do everything legally, but he doesn't do everything illegally. He's always like right on the line, which is very interesting. But in terms of his character, I couldn't have been more wrong. He is not a deadpan serious character. He's as goofy as like the other characters. He fucking loves sweets, cars, and saunas. That's the thing that everyone makes fun of him about. And like it's just very cool when like there's a car, he just kind of geeks out about it. When he eats a sweet, he fucking goes into a trance of how he loves it and he explains it like a real pro. So I'm really liking him as a character. One of the main things that I love about Van is, well, I was worried when I was coming into the game because they're pretty much adding this new series into the Trail series. Like I said, there's the Sky series, the Zero/Azure series, and the Cold Steel series. And if you play those games, you know they all intertwine. By the end of like Reverie, for example, every character knows each other. They've been through a fuck ton together. Like they're an entire team. Like they all know each other and they've been through so much together. So how would they add this new group? Because obviously there's gonna be a new group, and I'm like, obviously they're gonna have the characters interact with this group at some point in the future too, I'm assuming. And so I was kind of worried with like, how are they gonna have to introduce every single character again? Like every time you see an old character, are they gonna have to be introduced? And because if you didn't know, they have a fuck ton of characters in Trails. Like just from Trails Reverie alone, the cast of characters that were playable were like 40. Like you had 40 characters or something to pick through, which is a lot. And so like if they had to introduce all of them to Van and everyone in this game, I was like, how are they gonna do it? And so the genius thing this game did is Van already knows everybody. That's just a choice they made. And when that happened, I was like, yo, that's so smart. So pretty much, I won't go to spoilers right now, but there are characters in this game from the old series. There's been like a few already. And whenever they met up with Van was like, oh yeah, I remember you from 2 years ago. Or like, oh yeah, I met you 5 years ago. Like Van just knows everybody already, which is really fucking funny. And so like slowly throughout the game, you're kind of realizing how he's doing that. And so I guess one thing I'll say, if this is a spoiler for you, skip like 30 seconds. But the reason Van knows about a lot of the stuff is apparently, if you play Trails of Cold Steel, I believe it was 3 or 4, there was an operation they did called Meo's Mirage, where they kind of had to save the fucking world. They pretty much revealed in this game that Van was a part of it. He was just helping behind the scenes. And so that's how he knows a lot of the people. So a lot of the characters that are from Cold Steel or like even Trails in the Sky or whatever, like some characters that are coming back, Van just already knows them and he has a history with them. And I feel like that's just the best way to go about it, because for the people who have played those games, since we already know it and Van already knows it, you kind of like get this, like you kind of get to skip all the bullshit of like reintroducing them. But at the same time, because Van's party members don't know them, you do still get like a quick introduction of who they are for the new players who may just jump into Daybreak, which is very cool. But yeah, character-wise, Van I'm fucking loving. Like he is shooting like up into my list. I don't know where he is in the list if I had to kind of rate all the main characters, but I am really liking him. And another aspect of Van that I really like is it's just really nice to have a mature character, because like every other game that we play, like Reen from Cold Steel or Lloyd from of Zero/Azure, and even like Estelle and Joshua from Trails in the Sky, they're all, for all intents and purposes, pretty much kids. Like when you play Trails in the Sky, I believe Estelle and Joshua are like 16. In Trails of Cold Steel, I believe you're like 17, and then in Zero/Azure you are 18. So I guess they were slowly aging up the characters. And what's nice about this game is you're 24, like you're just like a full-ass adult, like you're just like an adult. And what's nice about that is because you're 24, they pretty much automatically make him more mature and make him dismissive of like a lot of the tropes that are usually in these types of games. One trope you'll see a lot in a game is that the main character will be kind of like a person who's kind of doofy, and when like if there's any talk of like romance or something, they'll kind of like they'll kind of freak out and blush about it or whatever. Van has none of that. He's 24. He's not a fucking kid, so like nothing phases him. So there'll be times, for example, you have an assistant, Agnes, who works for you. She is a high schooler, so like them dating is out of the question, obviously. But there are some characters who joke like, oh, like, are you guys dating? Why are you guys always together? And Van doesn't react to it. He doesn't even like, he literally just talks past it and keep talking. But you'll have Agnes kind of like blush or whatever the fuck, or react to it because like she's still like a kid. And so I just like really like that throughout the game, every single time something like that happens, or there's like some like pervy trope that they're trying to push against like the character, Van's just like, no, like why would I, like he just talks past it. He doesn't care. He's an adult. Like it doesn't affect him, which is very real and very nice, because every other game the main characters are always kind of like falling into that trope, but Van doesn't really do that. And what I kind of like is Van is like goes the other extreme, where like he will make sure other characters are not like that. There's another character, Aaron, who's kind of like a womanizer, and Van very much tells him to like fuck off and not like tell him to like not do that to women, or just like be more respectful or whatever the hell. And so it's very nice seeing that these tropes that you usually see in these Japanese RPGs, we're kind of moving away from it, at least with this character specifically. And I kind of like that change of pace, where if he was a 24-year-old and he was for some reason blushing when like someone said like, oh, are you dating your assistant? I'd be like, okay, that's kind of weird, especially because you're a lot older than them and you're their boss. Is kind of weird. And so the fact that he's just like, no, that's just weird, that's out of the question, is just like, yeah, that's a good choice, thank you. They really should have done that a long time ago, but that's just something I really like about Van too. And so yeah, him as a character, your company as a character. So pretty much the way this game works is like you have a company, it's called Arkwright Solutions. Arkwright is your last name, and you pretty much just go out and help people out and like solve cases. That's kind of your thing. And so whenever you get a party member, they're pretty much being hired into the company, which I thought was very fucking cool, because in Trails in the Sky, you're a bracer. In Trails 0/Azure, you're a cop. In Trails of Cold Steel, you're a student at a military school. So in this game, I was wondering what they would do, and the fact that you literally just own your own business is a very fun twist to put on it, especially because you're your own boss. In the other games, there was always someone above you that you had to, get orders from. But in this is like, nope, you are the boss, and you have this very fun dynamic where like you know how the system works, and you're just teaching your assistants how it works, like how you actually go out and get quests and help people and things like that. And they just use it very smart in the story too, where like sometimes you're solving a case, and instead of Van just like saying the answer, he'll like turn to the assistant and is like, you guys have been following me, how do you guys think the case should go, or what do you think is a solution to this case? And pretty much you have to choose as a player. But the fact that they have a story reason of Van teaching these kids how to solve this case, it just makes sense, where like he would ask them like, yeah, you guys are working for me, what do you think about it? Like, what are your thoughts on this case? And you as a player get to choose, which is, I think, very cool how they kind of mesh that story aspect of you being the boss with the gameplay aspect of, making choices and trying to solve the cases that you're trying to solve. So yeah, character-wise, I'm just really liking all the characters that are in it. In terms of NPCs is another thing that I want to talk about. I think it's pretty much the exact same as how the previous Trails games used to be. I've talked about this in the past, but I love the NPCs in Trails. You get to talk to every single one of them. They have a bunch of dialogue, and a lot of the plot, lore, and whatever you can get from them is amazing usually. And one thing that I noticed in this game that they did is not every NPC is interactable now. So for example, if there's a city and there's like, I don't know, 50 people in it, you might be able to talk to like 10. And I'm fine with that. I don't want to talk to 50 people. That's a lot. And this pretty much allows them to populate the cities, but not make it, annoying for the player to play through. And I mentioned this in my last episode, but I'll touch on it real quick. But I really love the system they added to talk to NPCs, where on the minimap, NPCs will be yellow and they'll have a blue text box above them. If you talk to them and you keep talking to them, and once they finish talking, their minimap icon will go from yellow to gray, and their text box on top of them will go from blue to gray. So you know exactly who you've talked to and you're done talking to. So when you just look at the minimap, you'll immediately know whether you're done talking to everyone. The only thing that I don't like is the shop icon does not change. So if you go to a shop, there's obviously someone there. And if you look on top of the shop guy, they'll have a blue text box and you can talk to them until it turns gray, which is cool. But the actual shop icon on the map will not change to gray. So that's kind of annoying. So like sometimes I just don't know if I've talked to everyone, because if there's like 7 shops in the area, I'm like, I don't know if I've talked to them yet. And so I have to go to them in real life and check that out, which kind of sucks. I feel like this is like a very easy thing they could implement from an update. Hopefully that'd be nice, but I don't know if that's specific to me or if people even care. But like, as someone who likes to talk to every NPCs, this quality of life update has been so nice. It would be nice for them to go all the way and implement it for these shop owners too. But yeah, NPCs I think have just largely been pretty much the same, which means that it's good in this game. And so yeah, in terms of NPCs, I think it's good. The next thing I want to talk about is the game loop, because Trails have a specific game loop. Some are kind of different. And in general, whenever I am able to guess what the game loop of a game is, the worse that is. So pretty much, I never want to know what's happening next in the game. Like, if, for example, if a game is like, okay, we have to fight these 4 monsters, that's the game. I fucking hate that. Don't tell me that. I don't want to know that. Why would you telegraph the entire game from the start? You're just going to make me feel bored as I'm playing the game. And so there are a lot of games like that, which I don't like. And one of my favorite moments in a game I've played in the past, I can't remember which one it is. It might have been one of the Trails of Cold Steel games, but pretty much what they did is they did exactly that, where they're like, okay, so we're going to be doing this mission and we're going to have to go to location A, then location B, then location C. And that's what they told us. And I was like, okay, I didn't want to know that, but sure. And we went to location A. That ended up being a huge chunk of the game, like several hours. And I'm like, that was really fucking cool. And then when we finished, they're like, okay, it's time for location B. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot they told us this. And I'm like, okay, so we got to do what we just did 2 more times. Okay. But what ended up happening is on the way way to location B, something happened which stopped our plan, and we had to pretty much reorganize and make a new plan and just go in a different direction from there, which was really fucking cool. So they pretty much just tricked the player into thinking that we knew the game loop, but we really didn't. And that is to say is, in terms of Trails Through Daybreak's game loop, they do have a game loop. Obviously, the Trails games usually always have a game loop. And from a very high level, the game loop is you go into the town, you have quests to do to help people, you do the story, and that just repeats. That's pretty much the rough game loop. But what makes this interesting is they pretty much took a page out of Trails of Cold Steel's book. Is even though you have that game loop, you never know what's going to come next in the story or location. So every time we kind of go out to, do quests for people, you go to a new location. So we started in Edith, which is the town that you're in, and you were there for like a while. Then you went to an entirely new city and you did the game loop there. Then you went into an entirely new city and you did the game loop there. And because the story doesn't have a obvious trajectory, it's just very interesting. Like, there is an overall plot, which I'll say right now. You learn this in the first few hours, but Agnes is looking for these 8 artifacts, pretty much, that belong to her grandfather, and you're just trying to help her get all 8. That's like the overall plot, and like every chapter, you're trying to get another one. And so that's all we know. But in terms of like the specifics of where we're gonna go, how we're gonna get it, who has the artifacts, you have no idea. And so every minute of the game, I'm just interested. I'm like, yeah, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? I literally don't know. Like, what city are we gonna go next? Are we gonna go back to Edith? Are we gonna go to another one? Like, it's just a surprise, and that's just something I really love about the game. And again, they do have a game loop. So when you're in the city, you go out, you do the quests, which are called 4 SPG quests, because he's called a Spriggan, and like 4 SPG is kind of a short version of that. But you go out, you get these quests. I do every single quest, so I do all the quests, I help everyone out, and then I continue the story. And usually what ends up happening after you continue the story is it turns night, and Van goes out into the city alone, and you get to do a few more quests and get more character moments, and then it repeats where it goes to the next day. There'll be more story, and you just repeat that. That's a rough game loop. But again, I don't really ever really feel the loop, because the story is so interesting and you don't know where it's going to go, and the locations are always changing too. Like, if I was on chapter 3 and I was still in Edith, I'd probably be feeling the game loop pretty hard, because it's just the same area over and over. But the fact that I'm going to an entirely new city every chapter just makes it a lot more interesting to me. And so game loop wise, I think this game, does it well for me too. Another thing I want to talk about is the actual world. That is very important to me, because that is what Trails is. If you Google a game with best world building, Trails will probably come up, because it is, in my opinion, the game with the best world building, second to none. I don't think any game comes near it, in my opinion. And so in terms of the world of Daybreak, it's been very interesting, because if you play the Trails games, you know that Trails in the Sky was in Libero, Trails of Cold Steel was in Erebonia, Zero/Azure were in Crossbell, and this all takes place on a continent called Zemuria. And there's been a country that you've never gone to called Calvard that everyone always talked about, and this game finally delves into Calvard and you get to learn about it. And so that's what this game is. And I've honestly been enjoying it. Something that's been very interesting to me specifically is that this game is delving much more into real life culture. So like the other games, I never really ever thought about what country the other games would be in. Like, they're all like European/American feeling, but like I literally never thought about it. But in this game, they specifically have like there's a town called Longport, which is very clearly has East Asian influences, where like just based on the structural design of buildings and stuff, it looks kind of like China or Japan or something like that. I'm in a place called Tharbad right now, which is clearly inspired by the Middle East, where like everyone's brown, they wear turbans, they wear like, the types of clothes you wear there, like you could tell like this is the Middle East. And so they're clearly taking influences from real life. And so that's just very interesting to see, because that's something that's never happened before. And you can very clearly tell that was a decision they made by purpose, because I don't know where it's going to lead to right now, but there has been already some talk a bit in the story of like racial issues going on in the game, where there's people who don't want immigrants anymore, and like a lot of white supremacy shit. Like, they're literally using these words like white supremacy, racial terrorism, etc. in this game. Like, this is going to be a plot point. And so them choosing to make cities that are based on real life countries or whatever, I think is a smart idea, because I feel like you get to feel that the importance of the racial terrorism in this game. Like, it feels more real, which I think is something they want to do, because I guess I haven't touched on this either, is this game is a lot darker, I feel like, than the other games, where like there are deaths in Trails, like that does happen, but it's usually never really that visceral or serious. But this game, like, it does not hold back. Like the game starts and like one of the characters, I won't say who, but there is a character that just straight up dies. He gets his throat slit and like he's dead, like he's just straight up dead. And one of the characters has to kind of like react to that. There's a character very recently that another character got their throat slit, and like they show it, like they show the character on the ground, blood all over his throat, on the ground, on the walls, and I'm like, Jesus, Trails usually doesn't do that. And so like they just have like these really darker tones. Like I'm gonna explain a side quest right now. If you don't want to be spoiled, skip a minute. But there's literally a side quest where a girl hires you, and she's pretty much saying like, hey, my boyfriend hasn't contacted me within a month. Can you figure out what's going on? Like he was part of a gang. Can you just figure out what's going on? And I feel like these type of quests happen like in Trails, like this style of quest. I'm like, and I assume what would happen is I would find the gang that he's part of. Maybe he got kidnapped. I would have to beat the gang up, save him, and take him back to his girl. What the quest ended up being is you have to kind of investigate what happened to him from different people. You end up learning that the gang pretty much gave him a final mission to infiltrate another organization before, you know, he can come back. And as you go through the quest, you learn that he realizes that he's not going to come back. And so he sends a letter to pretty much tell the girlfriend that he just fucked off and is cheating with someone else just so she doesn't have to be depressed. And that's cool and all, but you still don't understand what happened to him. And what you end up finding out is you read a newspaper article, and the newspaper article specifically mentions that they found a dead body at the scene of the organization, and it's unknown who he is because he wasn't part of that group. And yeah, you just realize that the boyfriend is just dead, and you literally have to go to the girlfriend and break the news to her. And this game is very cool where you have choices in all your quests, and based on your choice, it kind of makes you either go on the lawful side or the evil side. And so in this, you literally had the choice of lying to her and saying like, yeah, look, your boyfriend left a message and he's cheating now, you know, move on. Or you could tell her the truth. And I obviously opted to tell her the truth. And she was like, what the fuck? My boyfriend said. She obviously like broke down, and I'm like, goddamn, bro, this is like more real than I expected. And so this game definitely took a shift to be more mature and more dark, which I kind of like, because the game is still like goofy and like mostly like positive, which I do like to see in these games. But the fact that they're taking more of a mature overtone, especially because the character's more mature too, like I'm down with that. I really like that that this is the direction that the game is going for. And so yeah, like I just like that aspect of the world. Another aspect of the world that I want to mention very quick is, one of the things I love looking forward to in the Trails games is how the technology is developing. Like if you go from the first Trails game to the most modern Trails game, you will literally see the technology develop. Like you'll see like there's no computers, and there's these big ass computers, and there's smaller computers, and now in this game you have flip phones. Like you'll see the technology advance. You'll see that like in Trails in the Sky, there were airships, but there were no real vehicles. And then in Trails of Cold Steel, like there's some cars, but it's only for the rich. And motorcycles are kind of being invented. And now you're in this game where like, not only do you have cars, they're selling sports cars. They do car racing now. There's like F1 racers in this game. They're called Z1 racers. There's like cool ass motorcycles, and you're just seeing the technology evolve, and it's just really fucking cool to see how it not only differs over time, but how it differs per region. And so that's just something I've been very much enjoying of seeing in this game too, to see how the technology not only is now in the modern era, but is in Calvert specifically. So that's just something I've also loved about the world building of this game. And to kind of end it off is in terms of just a small note is the voice acting of this game. I think the voice acting is good. I want to bring this point up. Usually I wouldn't talk about voice acting, but I noticed in Reverie the voice acting some points is weird. Not only the voice acting, the sound mixing. I've been noticing this in more games recently, is the sound mixing of games are just really fucking bad these days for some reason. So like in Reverie, like there'll be some lines which are very quiet, there's some that are very clipping, and like I don't know why. And some of the voice actors in Reverie were like not that good. Specifically, like a lot of the characters from Trails in the Sky that they gave voices to, I've noticed just weren't that good. And so I was interested to see like, is Daybreak gonna be fine in terms of voice acting? And it is. The voices are really fucking good. I love Van's voice actor. Everyone like Agnes, Aaron, like Fairy, like the voice acting is great. They all sound good. The sound mixing is good too. The only thing I had to do, I did have to change the audio levels of the voice lower than the music, like 3 notches lower, because it was way too loud before, where like anytime I talked to someone I had to lower the volume of my TV. And so now that I changed it lower, the sound mixing is perfect and the voice acting is of good quality too. And so that's kind of the last point I want to bring for this. I don't want to talk about the story really specifically because it'll just be spoilers anyways. And if I do, I may do that in a future episode where I go throughout the entire game. But yes, that is pretty much my thoughts on Trails Through Daybreak. Hopefully you enjoyed that. This episode is running way longer than usual, but from here we'll move on to the final segment, which is my JRPG Top Casual list. Now for my JRPG Top Casual list, if you're new to the segment, this is where I make a top list very casually. I pick a topic, I kind of pick my list very quickly and don't think about it too much. And so my topic for this week is my top characters in Trails Through Daybreak so far. So like I said earlier in the episode, I am about 50 hours into the game, and so there are a lot of characters I've seen so far in the game. This is going to be my top 3 characters so far, and again, I just picked these right from the top of my head. If I think about it very hard, it might be different, but this is what I have so far. At number 3, I have Jin. Number 2, I have Aaron, and number 1, I have Van. Now, number 3 is Jin. Fun fact, I just realized in this game that it's pronounced Jin. I used to call him Zin, Z-I-N, because that's how it's spelled. He's from Trails in the Sky, and he's back in this game, and I fucking love him. He's just like the same like positive dude, because I was very curious to see how he was going to be, because in this game, because of the line of work that you do in Trails Through Daybreak, bracers, not for the most part, but a lot of them hate you. They just don't like you. And I just love that Jin automatically just on your side. He's like, bro, you're cool as fuck. You know what? You should help me out. And he gives us jobs to do, which our character doesn't like. But he's just like this positive, big fucking dude. And I just really like him. And so, yeah, I just really like Jin as a character, and it's very cool to see him from Trails in the Sky that far back, because I don't think he's been in any game since Trails in the Sky from my memory. I don't think he has been. So the fact that he's back from there, and just to see how he looks visually, he's fucking dripped out. He used to wear like a lot more simpler clothes, but now he's wearing much more modern clothes, which looks cool. But yeah, Jin comes at number 3. At number 2 is Aaron. I think he's just really cool in terms of how he was introduced. His design is very dope. How different he is from what I expected. I thought he would be something like Randy from Trails Zero or Azure, but he's not. He's a lot more hot-headed. He's more of a womanizer. He's a younger character. He's like, I think he's like 19, 20 years old. And so just, seeing him has been cool. And he's just like a very comedic relief character too, because he's just open about his thoughts. But it's just very cool seeing him, because he's almost like prodigious, where he's very good at fighting. He's smart. He took care of his town, and like his character arc from when he's introduced was fucking intense. Like what ends up happening in that arc, no spoilers, but what ends up happening in that arc is like very, intense. And so the fact that we get to see his character arc from the start and see how he is now is very cool. So Aaron, I just think, is a very likable dude, and his character design is just fucking awesome too, with like the red hair and white coat and stuff. And at number 1 is Van. I just love Van as a character. He's the main character of Trails Through Daybreak. He's just a lot better than I expected. I thought he was going to be this, stoic, emotionless character who's kind of like more mature, but he is more mature. I really like that about him. He kind of, flies past the tropes that you'd usually see in JRPGs, but he's still like a funny dude. He has a lot of, comedy moments. He's kind of snarky. He's kind of sassy. He has like these endearing moments where like he's eating a sweet and he'll be saying so much fucking facts about it, and everyone's just like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's into cars, which is very cool. You've never seen with the character before, because I want to say all the characters in the past have been kind of tech illiterate, where they don't really know that much about tech. And so the fact that like in Daybreak, like he knows about cars, he knows the ins and outs of it. He's just kind of smart about that. I really like that aspect of him. And yeah, so far Van as a character, like, this is very interesting. And I really like that he's morally gray. He's morally gray from the standpoint of this game, whereas like he's not really morally gray. So pretty much in this game, his line of work is like, it's not completely legal, but it's not illegal. It's right on the line. And so this game like saying that like he's very morally gray, but he's not really. Like, you're not ever doing something evil. Like, he doesn't kill people or anything like that, but that is something that is so interesting, where like in the past games, you're always doing stuff for the good, because you were either playing as a cop, or you were a part of a military school, or you were a bracer, so you had to do the good thing. Where in this, if you had to do something that's not completely morally good, you will do it. And now that I think about it, there's actually one moment where he does have to do something that's kind of bad. I won't say it because it's a spoiler, but like he is okay with going on the other side of morality, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, Van as a character, I don't know how Trails keeps doing it. I remember when Trails Zero came out, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this new group with like Lloyd and Randy and all that, because like I just love Cold Steel. Sky was cool, but SSS has become one of my favorite groups. Like sometimes, depending on the day, I like them better than the Cold Steel crew. And now with this, like, I'm really liking it. In terms of the entire crew, I'll have to see. Like, I'm really liking Van, but in terms of the entire crew overall of who's in it, I don't think it's that strong. Like SSS, like they were a fucking unit. Like I love all 4 of them. But in this, like Van is really cool. Agnes is dope. Aaron I really like too. And then there's Fairy. Like, they don't seem as cohesive yet, so we'll see how it is. I am 50 hours into the game, so you would expect more cohesiveness at this point, but we will see. I have no idea how long this game is. I'm only on chapter 3. But yeah, that is my list. Number 3 is Jin. Number 2 is Aaron. Number 1 is Van. And from here, we will end off this episode 33 of Spill the Tearal. This may be my longest episode, at least recording. It's an hour and 13 minutes in, or 14 minutes, which is pretty cool. And so We are going to end it right here. If you're listening on an audio service, remember to give it 5 stars or like it. That would be hella appreciated. It really helps the performance of my podcast on audio services and makes it more likely that I'm going to keep doing this for as long as I can. If you are watching on YouTube, whether it's on the Spill the Tearal channel where I just upload the episodes and the segments of the episode, or the KhUnlimited channel where I just upload whatever I want, it is very much appreciated. If you like the episode, feel free to leave a like. If you're new, feel free to subscribe. And if you had any thoughts about anything I said, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. And yeah, thank you for watching episode 33, and I'll see you next week for episode 34. Peace.